we're reading to really build our imagination. And when you think about what that means, it's like, you know how when you read your text or you read the computer or you read the internet, it's all about get me information, get me information, get me information. But really what we want to do when we read is learn how to think deeper, right? And learn how to put ourselves in the character's place. And, I've heard from like authors and poets and, people who really have put a lot of work into their writing that, the world would be better if more people read. The world would be better if there were more poetry in it. And what does that mean? It means that what we have to do is we have to think about building our imagination. Because when you read, you don't only get smarter, but when you read, you become a better person because you learn how to think in a different way. And you learn how to, in some ways, like connect to the characters or put yourself in that setting or in that place. And, what would I do in that situation? Or how would I feel if I were Katniss right now? Or, if I were Esperanza on Mongol Street, do I feel like that in my life? Can I bring that character into my life? We read so that we can build our character, build our compassion and our humanity. And so that we could think about, other options in the world. When you think of the word imagine, like John Lennon says, imagine there were different options or there were different ways to make a choice. There's a famous writer, Luis Rodriguez, who's a poet who came from East LA, who was in jail and, committed a lot of crimes and was involved in gangs when he was younger, and then became a writer and became a poet and taught poetry in prisons, in the California Youth Authority, in juvenile hall. And he said, I learned something teaching those young men about poetry, and that is that when you read and when you write poetry and when you even look at poetry and think about it, it helps you to consider an option. And he said, I was talking to the guys and I was like, well, why are you in here? What did you do? Oh, I committed this crime. Oh, I did this violent act, or I, retaliated against this other gang member, or whatever it is that they did. And he's like, well, why'd you do it? And most of the guys, he said, that was so astonishing to him, said, because I couldn't think of another option, because I didn't have a different choice. And all he could think about was, oh my God, if they only had developed their imagination more, they could imagine another way. And so that's why I know, as a young woman raised in a really poor, really kind of difficult environment, that reading saved me. It saved my life. And it saved the lives of my family members. Because my dad was like not gonna let us not know how to read. He wasn't gonna allow us to be kind of trapped in this environment where everyone around us didn't have an option. Think about how reading isn't just a way to get information. Reading is a way to develop your brain muscle. You know how when you work out and you think about, oh, I'm going to do bicep curls, or I'm going to do squats, or I'm going to lift these weights because I need to get stronger, right? I need to develop my muscles. Well, think about your brain and think about your heart. And how do those muscles get stronger? They need curls, right? They need repetition. And they need you to keep thinking about ideas. And with that, you could develop your own ideas, You could develop your own way to live your life, your own path. And you think, well, how's that connected? There's so many people in books, characters and even historical figures who can teach you. Who can teach you about how to make decisions in your life. So think about that, right? I read not only to get smarter, but I read to become a better person.